They went to 5 different fertility clinics before they finally found an option that aligned with their ethics and faith. Hi, I'm Mark Mellinger, and this is Hope, Faith, and Infertility, a podcast from Southeastern Fertility in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can learn more about us by going to southeasternfertility.org. Our guests today, the people I was just describing, James and Lauren Lanier, they're one of our Southeastern Fertility families with a brand new baby. So we'll be talking about their new daughter throughout this podcast. But first, so good to have you two with us. And I was really just struck, Lauren, in our connection on social media. That's how it started. You said it took 5 different clinics before you found a place you felt comfortable with. So I want the two of you to go into sort of what that journey was like. What were you, I mean, infertility is hard enough. What were you
Mhm.
encountering then when you were trying to get help?
Well, we definitely wanted something that affirmed life, and that's a big priority for us. And I guess we started local because we assumed that, infertility clinics, they deal with infertility. We didn't think we'd be running into as many hassles and obstacles as we ended up discovering in the end.
Just the way that it's typically approached doesn't necessarily allow somebody like us who have the belief that life begins at conception to feel super comfortable. Um, there's a spectrum of comfort levels with infertility treatments, but I think we dove a lot deeper than some might, and we were asking for a very specific approach, and no one really wanted to help us in a way that met our needs and made us feel completely comfortable. And we ended up just asking doctor after doctor after doctor if they'd work with us. And the big issue was the way we wanted to approach it because of just doing what we felt was right before God and not wanting to make this such a huge thing that we violated our conscience or what we thought was right before God.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think was really strange to experience, I'd never really run into this in any kind of medical setting, is that there just seemed to be some pushback that, normally when you share like a deeply held conviction, people are like, oh, yeah, we'd love to help and accommodate that in any way we can. But it wasn't an easy road in our journey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we got some pushback about our views and our perspective, and that was just hard.
Well, do you mind sharing? And I know it's hard. I appreciate you coming on and sharing it because I know it's not easy. It sort of brings up old wounds, but I think it is helpful
Yeah.
for other people when you share your journey. So specifically, what were the main convictions that you were sharing, if you don't mind going into those, and
Yeah.
and some of the pushback that you were receiving?
Yeah. Well, maybe I can start and you
Yeah,
can fill in.
absolutely.
So, we basically got to the point where we had tried everything that we felt comfortable with, and we were looking at the need for something like IVF. And so we knew some about it. We were looking at it, and really we're aware of a lot of Christians and their different perspectives on IVF. We'd actually seen things on the Gospel Coalition, things that we had read that let us know that we need to approach this with caution. And so we believe that life begins at conception, and we didn't want what's typically done is just the creation of many embryos to get a few good embryos, and then the choice is really hard. We're a couple, and we want to say this in a way that really respects and upholds, um, in love other people who may have ventured down that road and not really thought through things as much as we did or didn't land where we did, but here's where we landed. That we didn't want to be faced with the choice to discard or to, you know, we didn't, I mean, donating is great, but we were just like, gracious, like how many could there be and what would that look like? And even the fact that we got real technical, even in recognizing that sometimes they're not even wanting to pass along to another couple at these fertility clinics because they don't look just right, and it's like it just got so messy that we wondered if there was an option where we could literally, um, and to get, I mean, people that are listening to this are probably in the battle themselves, but to freeze eggs and sperm separately and then to fertilize just one or two and transfer both of those to me immediately so that I wouldn't be faced with that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it may not have been the most successful path. It may have taken a little longer. It may have been really expensive, and no one was really interested in working with us.
Did they pretty much insist that you do pre-implantation genetic testing, PGT?
I don't know if we even got down that road that far with a
Yeah.
lot of them before. I mean, so, a big driver at fertility clinics seems to be success rates, that everybody is comparing everybody else on the success rates, and you don't want to hurt that. And so they're going to rate the embryos and grade them, and that's fine, but to make a choice based off of a higher grade was something we didn't really want to accept. And so creating a whole lot of embryos and then, feeling like all of these are important lives, is something that was central to our journey. And basically, once you start to go down those roads with them, they're realizing, I think the success rates are just going to drop. And so what's that going to do to our reviews? What's that going to do to whatever down the road marketing issues? I'm thinking, but I don't know what's in their hearts. So
yeah, we want to approach it in a lot of understanding and kindness, but and yet for us it was like, if there was an embryo that fertilized, then God had given life, and we wanted to put those embryos back in my body, and we didn't want to have a bunch of additional embryos and a hard choice. So that was kind of where we were at. So nobody would work with us up until Dr. Gordon.
How did you find Dr. Gordon? How did you find Southeastern Fertility?
We were aware of the NEDC. Actually, there was a couple in my church at Emmanuel in Louisville, Kentucky, and you guys had done a story on them about the embryo adoption, which made James say to me, like, when we started to think, what could we do? He said, I wonder if they have a fertility clinic associated with them, or I wonder if one of their doctors would just listen to us and care about what we're hoping to do here. So that's how we found Dr. Gordon.
How about that? And
yeah,
you reached out, and
just on a random chance.
Yeah, and of course I work for both organizations, so there's no escaping me here at both NEDC and Southeastern Fertility. But we're here because of those convictions that you expressed, because we share those convictions. And I really, by the way, do also appreciate the way that you're both expressing them, because that is also our heart. Not everybody who goes down this journey and makes choices that we would not consider right, or just a matter of a difference of opinion, they don't have ill motivation. A lot of times they're just not sufficiently informed, or haven't thought about it enough, or just landed, they're good believers who landed in a different place. That's okay. But the reason we're here is because we believe that all life is sacred. So how'd your conversation with Dr. Gordon go when you started going down that road?
Oh, that was kind of funny, because after all the pushback and the questions and the scenarios, it was sort of like with every other doctor that we just started getting grilled within like 5 minutes.
And to the point where I was in tears after those appointments. Like it was harsh.
Yeah.
So we were bracing ourselves, and he was so kind. And what did he say to you that first time? He's like, I think this is okay. This could work.
Yeah,
I'm willing to work with you.
I couldn't believe it. Like 5 minutes into Dr. Gordon's conversation with me, I was like, wow, like not only is he not like pushing back, he hasn't closed the door, he's willing to work with our convictions. It was a breath of fresh air. I honestly felt probably, like somebody who just been through the gauntlet and is expecting another gauntlet and can maybe lawyer our way through this conversation. And then all of a sudden he's like, I see no problem with that. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is
It's like, you're going to work with us? Are you kidding? It was amazing. It
yeah.
was so nice. And to know that, he's a fellow believer and he was kind to us about where we landed on this. Like, we hadn't experienced kindness.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's so important. And I don't, you hear a lot of that when you hear people talking about navigating the road of infertility and running into some people in the fertility industry, and it's really, really too bad. It's why we try to be a different sort of place. So so was the plan then natural cycle IVF for you too?
Exactly. That's right.
Okay, and that is, for those who aren't familiar with it, that is it's a much lower intensity way of doing it. You basically have almost none of the medications, and as you said, Lauren, you're really going after the one egg, so you're not going to be left with that ethical dilemma of having frozen embryos remaining, which we deal with over on the NEDC side. So talk about how your journey went.
So, man, we had to prepare for the big travel because we're from Raleigh, North Carolina, and we had to make a big trip with our son, who was 1.5 at the time. And of course, there's all kinds of emotions running high, but when we walked in, I just remember feeling so peaceful, and everybody treated us so nice, and it just really felt like we were following the Lord's leading, because this was just bathed in prayer and wise counsel from people at church. And we just felt like we were in the right spot when we walked in.
James, what about your perspective?
I was really happy that my wife wasn't in tears, to be honest. We've been through so much of that for so long. Like the 5 clinics thing, it wasn't like we set out to go to 5 clinics. Like, we thought, here's one clinic, this will probably be it, and what options, are available. And I'm assuming that people will work with us. And when the door started closing there, you start to lose hope more. And then it's like, well, maybe someone else. And we got to the point where, we had one doctor at a clinic here, and we're privileged to be around a lot of really excellent medical care, in the Raleigh-Durham area. And one clinic was like, well, we shouldn't necessarily think about these bigger clinics that maybe a private practice that's here would be bending their standards a little bit more on, what they want to do to maybe the success, or whatever.
The success rates.
Success rates, because we just, I don't see, he was saying, why this couldn't maybe happen, but, it's going to be somebody who needs to work with you, and we just can't do that. And so just when Dr. Gordon and the staff is, so accommodating, we had hope again, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's, and walking in, it's like, wow, are we really here? It was so surreal.
Yep. And you know what? My son was in the waiting room, and people, some of the nurses were coming through and talking to him and loving on him. It was just a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, and they're happy to do that. They do that all the time. So good. I'm glad you experienced that part of it. So talk about Hallie, your Southeastern Fertility baby. The bottom line is it worked. I mean, how'd you feel when you knew it worked, and then eventually
we have a little
she arrived?
daughter. Yeah, she is just amazing. It's just like, I don't know. We just felt in our hearts that the Lord was maybe going to give us a child, and we didn't want to give up hope. And then through prayer and through even Dr. Gordon's own story of how he wanted to start working at Southeastern Fertility, God wove both of those stories together and gave us our little girl. She is so special and wonderful. She's a gentle soul. She's calm. She's got James's personality, I think. He's the calm, low-key, and so she's really a lot of fun to be with. And we just can't imagine life without her.
Yeah, she's a total treasure. When you
Yeah.
have your daughter in your arms for the first time, it just like that's amazing. There's nothing like that.
And
So,
we gave our son a brother or a sister. Yeah, he's a big brother.
yeah.
You made him a brother now, and he's what, 2.5, somewhere around
Yeah.
there. Okay, so I mean, how's he liking this? Is he adjusting to this?
He is now. When we first brought her home, he wasn't sure he wanted to keep her because she was crying. But yeah, he's really learning how to, serve another little one and to help us take care of her. It's all good things that'll really shape his character.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. So a couple last things before we go. First of all, what do you think you would say to other couples who hold your convictions and are about to set out on the journey that you did, or maybe run into some of those walls already? And I just want to say, the answer doesn't have to be that everybody needs to go to Southeastern Fertility. We do the podcast. This is our thing,
Yeah.
but we know that's not feasible or necessarily realistic for everybody. We're happy to take them, but if you have some other general guidance, I'd love to hear it.
I think don't lose hope, especially as Christians, that, our God is a God of hope. And infertility is one of those things in life that I feel like is better at robbing hope than most other things. It's, you carry it with you a lot. And to know that God has the ability to work is really important. And our journey, has us even more cognizant of the fact that life is a miracle, regardless of how we pursue it. And to know that's all in His hands is really encouraging. That He loves us and the babies that we may have more than we do. So.
And one thing that encouraged me when I was in that very position, starting out, is that when there's infertility mentioned in the Bible, really a lot of times it's a big backdrop for God's glory in one way or another. It just paints the picture and sets the stage for God to glorify Himself. And we don't know, if every couple is going to end up with a little baby in their arms or how, but the bigger picture is going to be really amazing and really good and really worth it, especially when we stand before the Lord one day. And I would say, do your research. Don't compromise on your convictions before God, because everything's going to work out for His glory, and He loves you. And that's kind of what I was clinging to during all this.
Yeah, He does not promise that the story will always have a neat happy ending, the happy ending we want on this side of eternity. But you're right, it is comforting knowing that there is a plan. It is a plan, and if you're a child of His, it will be for your good. Whatever He has you going through right now is exactly what you were supposed to go through, as hard as that is to hear sometimes and experience in real time. So it sounds to me like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like the whole experience of infertility, maybe you didn't learn anything new necessarily about God, but it could have strengthened your commitment and familiarity to the things you already knew about Him. Is that right, or did it shape your relationship with Him in other ways?
I think there's a big difference between knowing that He's there for you in these big ways and experiencing it. It's the difference between knowing that your mom might give you a hug and actually being in the middle of it. So God has a way of meeting us in the middle of our pain that is so real and important. He promises to never leave us or forsake us, and we don't get to enjoy that promise until we feel like, well, the circumstances are that He might, but He doesn't. And that was really good to experience.
And we don't have all of the whys from God, but a couple things we do know is that in our particular story, he let us talk to 5 different clinics and share a life-affirming position that may have challenged them, and we get to share about that on here. And also, our son is, we had him through embryo adoption, and so we like to talk about that as well. And so that we know some of the whys maybe, but not all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, he's giving you those little windows into his grace, even if we won't know all the whys this side of eternity. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
A great family, Hudson and Hallie, and a lot going on in your lives right now. So thank you for setting aside the time just to do. I remember those days. We had our kids about 1.5 years apart. They're now 21 and 23, so those days are long gone, but I remember what they were like. Thank you so much. You two have been terrific. Thanks for setting aside the time.
Thank you.
You bet. And that is it for this edition. If you want to learn more about Southeastern Fertility, Dr. Gordon does offer free 15-minute telemedicine consultations. You can find out more about those by going to our website, which is southeasternfertility.org. Again, southeasternfertility.org. I'm Mark Mellinger. This has been Hope, Faith, and Infertility.